Hi everyone, my name is Jill Cleland. I'm a graduate dietetic intern working with the USC WorkWell Center, and today I'm going to talk to you about carbohydrates and do some myth busting around this often judged macronutrient. First, let's start with our agenda, starting with carbohydrates 101 or a quick introduction about what they are, moving into myth busting carbohydrates, and then providing some recipe ideas and concluding with a summary. Let's begin by discussing a little bit about carbohydrates. Starting with the basics of what carbohydrates are. They are one of three macronutrients alongside fat and protein and are sourced primarily from plants. When it comes to the structure of carbohydrates, every carb is made up of a chain of glucose. And depending on the length and the complexity, they are then going to be classified as either complex carbohydrates or simple carbohydrates. When digested, complex carbs take a little bit more effort to break down into simple sugars or molecules of glucose that our body then uses for fuel or stores for later energy. As mentioned, carbs come in two types, simple and complex, depending on their structure, and both can happily be enjoyed in moderation and in a balanced diet. Simple carbs are shorter chains of glucose and are found in things like baked good, milk and milk products, refined grains, and fruit. We're calling them simple because really it just takes less steps for our body to digest and absorb them and then take the glucose as energy. The complex carbs, on the other hand, are a little bit more complex because they typically will contain fiber, which slows down our body's absorption. And some of the more common complex carbs include things like beans, legumes, whole grains, and fibrous fruits and vegetables. Diving a little deeper here, let's talk a bit more about fiber. Fiber is a complex carbohydrate that is largely indigestible to our bodies, but still provides many health benefits. There are two types, insoluble and soluble. Soluble fiber is going to dissolve into kind of a gel-like substance when it gets placed into water, and this can help you stay fuller longer and also has been known to lower blood sugar and lower cholesterol levels. Insoluble fiber, on the other hand, acts a little bit more like a bulking agent and can help with your overall digestion and just keep things regular and balanced. Fiber is also so great for our cardiovascular health and for preventing chronic disease. Hopefully, you'll find that as some good incentive to add more fiber in your diet because today only 5% of Americans are getting their recommended fiber goal. Last but not least, this little tidbit here may incentivize you as well. Studies have shown that increased fiber intake is linked to a decrease in mortality, suggesting that fiber may contribute to longevity. Carbohydrate digestion really begins first in the mouth, and that is a unique thing for this macronutrient. So when we first take a bite of food, like a slice of bread, the digestion starts right in that first bite, and your food begins to get broken down by an enzyme in the saliva. From there, your body breaks down the carbohydrates even more into molecules of glucose that are sent into your bloodstream to be used for energy. As carbohydrates are consumed, the blood sugar levels increase, and this stimulates your pancreas to secrete insulin. Any glucose that doesn't get used is stored first by our liver and muscles and then by the body as fat or energy stores. And if you have any questions around blood sugar levels, please consult your physician or registered dietitian. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the benefits of carbohydrates for our body. First and foremost, as I mentioned, they provide energy. They are such a great source of energy and really are one of the largest sources of calories for most people's diets because of this. Number two, not only are carbs a good source of energy, but they're legitimate fuel for our cells, tissues, and organs, including our brain, which is believed to prefer carbs as their main source of energy. And number three, benefit here is carbohydrates play a really important role in preserving muscle mass and assisting with optimal recovery. Furthermore, they are great for promoting digestion. When we add more fiber into our diets on a regular basis, this feeds the good bacteria in our guts and maintains great overall health. Number five, carbohydrates are incredibly important for heart health, specifically whole grains and complex carbs like beans and vegetables. And last but not least, carbs play such an important role in maintaining and managing a healthy blood sugar. Again, if you have any questions about maintaining your blood sugar levels, please consult your physician or registered dietitian. But overall, carbohydrates are such an important macronutrient that offers so many health benefits. Now that we've given a general overview, let's dive into some of the most common myths or misconceptions that exist around carbohydrates and dig into the facts behind them. Myth number one. The first myth I commonly hear is that all carbohydrates are bad for you and you should limit them no matter what. This can be incredibly confusing for many people who don't understand the full depth of what a carbohydrate is and what it's not. To bring some truth here, I think it's important to call out that all carbs can fit, but also that not all carbohydrates are created equally. When we think about carbs, I like to bucket them into two categories: energy dense versus nutrient dense. An energy dense breakfast, for example, could be like a breakfast croissant sandwich. This is something that at first glance probably has a lot of calories to it, and so is giving you a lot of energy. But what you'll find is that most of these calories are coming from simple carb sources, which are going to fill you up in the short term, but long term, you're going to get hungrier sooner rather than later. On the other hand, a more nutrient-dense breakfast, like an avocado toast with grain and eggs, is going to provide you with a more sustained energy because it's built off of those complex carbohydrates in the bread and is also being enjoyed with a fat, the avocado, and some protein from the egg. The next myth I've heard quite frequently is that gluten is bad and inflammatory for all, so no one should eat gluten. The truth is, for the general population, gluten is really okay. Simply put, all gluten is a protein that can be found in wheat, rye, barley, and some other types of grains. And it's really just providing structure, elasticity, and a lot of what gives bread and bread dough that texture you know and love. Gluten should certainly be avoided for those with celiac disease, which is an autoimmune disease that causes individuals to have an inflammatory response when eating gluten. Additionally, some individuals may experience gluten intolerances when it comes to consuming gluten, so they too should avoid. However, there is really no evidence to suggest that gluten is bad for the rest of the population, so feel free to include it as part of your healthy diet. The next myth is a bit nuanced and has to do with the influx and popularity of the ketogenic and other low-carb diets. And that is that cutting out carbohydrates is our body's preferred way to burn fat. The truth is, carbs are our body's preferred fuel. And when those carbs aren't available, they turn to another energy source, which is fat. When you're on a low-carb diet, your body begins to burn fat instead of its first choice of glycogen or stored carbs. And these low carb diets definitely tend to work for some in the short term, but a large part of this is really boiling down to being in a caloric deficit, meaning that you are consuming less calories than you are burning on a daily basis, rather than actually simply cutting out carbohydrates. The problem that many people can face when they are on these kinds of low carb diets is it's very easy to heavily rely on large intakes of saturated fat, while you're also missing out on heart healthy foods like whole grains and fiber, which have benefits towards reducing the risk of cardiovascular disease. And so these two things combined can actually put you at a greater risk for heart health in the long term. On top of that, the lack of sustainability of low carb diets can really present a challenge for most to be able to keep up and feel comfortable when they're eating out, whether that is at a restaurant, at a social gathering, etc. And so, for all of these reasons, carbohydrates remain our body's preferred source of energy. Myth number 4 is piggybacking off of our last myth and the idea of cutting carbs are the best way to lose weight. And this is still a myth that I hear quite a bit. The truth here is that low carb diets definitely can be really beneficial for weight loss. And many people feel that this is the only way forward, which is just not quite true. The reason that low carb diets tend to work come from a few reasons. As I mentioned previously, the main one is really just finding it easier to be in a caloric deficit when you are shifting your diet away from a Western diet, which is focused on high caloric or high energy foods like refined carbohydrates, baked goods, and maybe high fat sources of animal protein that can all contribute to more caloric intake versus a low carb diet or more whole food focused diet that forces you to get more nutrient dense foods into your plate. And additionally, as you begin to cut out carbohydrates, some of that initial weight loss that's happening really comes from water weight. Because carbohydrates are composed of water as one of their components, people will feel encouraged and see some weight loss initially, rather quicker than other diets, although it all tends to even out because this initial weight loss does tend to be from water weight. The point here is that a low carb diet really is just as effective as a Mediterranean diet or plant-based diet, or really any diet that is helping you to be burning more than you are consuming so that you can have weight loss as your end result. The research has continually shown that the Mediterranean diet is the reigning champion when it comes to long-term health, because not only is it sustainable and very easy for many people to follow, but it also focused on a really balanced diet of plants, legumes, healthy fat, and quality proteins. Myth number 5 focuses on one of the more popular macronutrients in the media these days, and that is protein. The belief here is that athletes need protein, not carbohydrates, to fuel themselves and perform efficiently. But the truth is, most athletes need carbohydrates. Protein is such an important macronutrient, and it's necessary for building muscle and other functions like immune response and bone strength. But the role of carbs for an athlete cannot be denied. These are individuals who are using a lot of energy to perform in their sport. And because carbohydrate or glycogen is stored in the muscles, carbs are crucial for sustaining long-term energy for endurance sports that are any activity lasting longer than 60 minutes, as well as refueling. They're also so important for high intensity workouts where that is a source of energy as well. And when it comes to recovery, refueling post workout will depend a little bit on the activity, but typically any longer endurance workout is going to focus on a recovery meal that's slightly higher in the ratio of carbohydrates to protein to restore those energy stores that have been depleted with that long exercise. So whether you're an endurance runner or a weightlifter, protein and carbs both play essential roles in fueling and helping athletes feel balanced. Myth number 6 is that fruits are too high in sugar, so we should avoid them. The truth is, bananas are not the devil. First and foremost, yes, most fruit does contain fructose, which is a type of sugar present in high fructose corn syrup, which you may have heard has been shown to be harmful when consumed in large quantities to human health. However, it's important to call out that the amount of fructose in fruits is nowhere near the level of concentration of what's in high fructose corn syrup. And on top of that, fruit is not just sugar, it's also an excellent source of fiber. And we know that has a lot of health benefits as well as antioxidants. When it comes to antioxidants, these are benefits of different kinds of foods that provide us with protection to our bodies from damage. And so antioxidants really come in a variety of colors. And when we're consuming foods or fruits and vegetables, we want to be trying to eat the rainbow so that we can maximize our antioxidant intake and the benefits that each of these antioxidants can give to provide us with a healthful diet overall. So definitely want to make it clear that fruit should certainly be enjoyed as part of a healthful diet and not villainized. Now, my last myth might be my favorite because I love to make sourdough bread. And so this one is near and dear to my heart that bread is bad for you. So let's get into the truth here. The truth is, it's not about the bread. I hope the theme that you're starting to sense is that all carbohydrates can be part of a balanced diet, and bread is no exception. If you're looking to build a balanced meal with bread, think about pairing your meal with fiber, protein, or healthy fats for a balanced meal that will keep you full. There are also some types of bread that provide more nutrition than others. So if you're at the grocery store and you're looking for a few tips to pick out a loaf, here they are. Number 1, aim for a loaf that has minimal or even better, no added sugar. Number 2 is finding a loaf that has some fiber in it. I typically like to aim for 3 grams of fiber in a slice. And last but not least, seeing if there's a little bit of protein, at least more than 1 gram. Now that we've gotten through the myth busting portion of this presentation, I wanted to provide some takeaways when it comes to consuming carbs in a healthful way, specifically for breakfast. When we think about starting the day, a balanced meal can really make or break our energy levels and set the tone for the rest of the day. Aiming for a balanced breakfast that is nutrient dense is a great way to start. You can try incorporating complex carbs like whole grains instead of refined. So think about trying steel cut oats or quinoa porridge. You can pair your carbs with protein and fat to stay fuller for longer. So I really love to have an unrefined grain like a protein oat from Bob's Red Mill. These are oats that are less refined, and because of that, they provide more protein per serving. And last but not least, sometimes I like to mix it up and enjoy adding legumes as my main course for breakfast. This allows me to add more fiber and get more carbs for sustained energy throughout the day. So some ideas here are making a breakfast lentil bowl or avocado edamame toast. If you're looking for more inspiration or other resources that are already built out for USC, take a look at Eat Well. This is a resource through the USC WorkWell Center that can provide you with healthy recipes, cooking videos, as well as a monthly nutritional webinar series called Eat Well Bites. Additionally, there are some resources for healthy dining on and around campus and an overall health and well-being directory. Feel free to click into any of the links or use the QR code for accessibility. And I wanted to also provide a takeaway here when it comes to a healthy carb meal, and that is this apple pie overnight oats recipe I created. It's perfect for fall, but really any season. And you can do most of the prep work the night before and just saute those apples day of, or you can do it the night before to save yourself some time. This recipe really leans into complex carbohydrates as well as fiber, while also tasting delicious and adding in plenty of healthy fats. And you have the option to add in more protein if you would like to. So this meal keeps me full till lunch, and it's definitely a favorite in my back pocket. In conclusion, let's go over what we learned. Number one, all carbs can fit, but not all are created equal. And on top of that, number two, carbohydrates are such an important part of a balanced diet and provide so many health benefits. Number three, when it comes to athletes, carbohydrates are just as important as protein, especially if you are doing endurance or high intensity activities or refueling. Number four, pivoting to weight loss. There are a few ways to achieve weight loss, but they really all come down to being in a caloric deficit and finding the diet that is the most sustainable for you. Number five, when it comes to carbohydrates and simple carbohydrates, pairing them with fat and protein can help you to stay full for longer. And number six, last but not least, I hope you walk away from this with the confidence to enjoy carbs in your diet rather than to fear them. Here are my references if you're interested in learning more. And please reach out to the USC WorkWell Center if you have any follow-up questions or feedback. Thank you.